Let's talk about long COVID now, because researchers have suggested that long COVID, the long-lasting impact of coronavirus infection, may not be a single syndrome, but up to 4 different ones. The National Institute for Health Research says the condition could be caused by the effects of being in intensive care, with permanent organ damage of the lungs and heart, post-viral fatigue, as well as continuing COVID symptoms. The review says coming up with a working diagnosis would help people access support. Well, I'm joined now by Lesley Macniven, who suffers from long COVID. She's a campaigner and activist and set up the COVID support group on Facebook, which has more than 20,000 members. Lesley, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us first of all about when you contracted coronavirus initially.
So I contracted coronavirus along with many other people in the middle of March, just before lockdown, and found the support group. It was actually Claire Hasty that found the support group. But I'm part of the campaign team who have been running it because we've now got 25,000 members. And it was really helpful to find out that I wasn't the only person with these symptoms. But as the report today has shown, that there is no one set of symptoms that individuals are having. What we've discovered is that the sort of post-ICU syndrome that they're talking about was, I think, expected. But I think the bit that we've experienced in the support group in a kind of slightly less visible way is that there are these various symptoms that come and go. There's not a linear progression. We think we're getting better and then we have setbacks if we push it ourselves even just a tiny little bit more than we had been doing previously.
That's interesting, because I was about to ask you, did you initially think you were getting better, but then discovered that you weren't? And have you had lots of those, oh, I think I'm getting better, and then realising that you hadn't got better?
Exactly. So, I mean, we had the 2 weeks of acute illness, and after that I thought, great, I'll be immune, I can help other people. This is me getting out of the way early. And it did have a lingering fatigue after that I recognised from when I had glandular fever. I had post-viral fatigue from that, so I assumed it was post-viral fatigue. So I thought, fine, I'll rest a bit longer. I'm freelance, and my kids are old enough that they can largely look after themselves. I just need to rest and I'll be fine. And because I thought I was on the mend and I was in good shape, I started doing media for the campaign team, because I'm in a lot better condition. I don't have heart issues, I don't have really bad lung issues. I have chest discomfort and really bad fatigue. And then into the process of doing that, I had a huge setback just because I was doing a little bit more and had a relapse for about 4 or 5 weeks where I was really not great at all. So again, I feel like I'm coming back from a relapse at the moment and I'm feeling pretty good. But you can't, for people who have a job to return to, this is a really challenging period.
Absolutely.
It's very different if you're working.
Lesley, you've described the physical symptoms, but talk to us about the psychological impact of all of this, because you think you're getting better, you realise you're not, and you're desperately hoping to get over all of these symptoms, and you still haven't. What does that do to you psychologically?
Absolutely, it's really hard. I think as time goes on, it's harder to bounce back and be resilient, because right back in March, we would have all expected to be better by summer at the absolute latest. And I think it's the same for people in lockdown. But, if you can imagine how hard it's been living under restrictions since March, but if you were also doing that every single day, you felt tired and fatigued and restricted in what you could do, even within your own 4 walls, because of lack of energy and lack of breath, which is such an important thing to be able to do anything. So absolutely, we are experiencing people who are having traumatic experiences, in some cases where they think they might die and they can't be admitted to hospital because they haven't got such bad symptoms that they feel they need to be in hospital. So we did what we were asked and stayed home and saved the NHS with significant symptoms. But these are not going away, and that's really worrying. That people are concerned they're never going to get their jobs back, their lives back again. And it's horrible. It's really, really difficult to get out of bed every day feeling like that.
And with the surge in cases, I mean, that must add to the layers of anxiety as well. And with this disease, right from the start, it's been clear that we didn't know a lot about it. It kept surprising, all the experts, and it's been a very, very steep learning curve. Do you feel at this point that people are really starting to recognise long COVID now, the impacts, and is there enough help out there yet?
I think as a campaigning group, we were delighted to get recognition. I think that's unequivocal. The next step, though, has to be some sort of rehab or support. And the group of patients, the fourth group of patients with long-term ongoing symptoms, of which I think a majority probably of our group fall into that category, they've been struggling because they don't fit in with the healthcare system, and they need to feel brought into that healthcare system and included and supported. And we need to be assessed to check that we don't have any of the other syndromes, because there's long-term organ damage is one of them. So how do we know when we're at home and we've never been inspected by a doctor or assessed in a clinic if we've got long-term organ damage? I'm sitting here assuming I've got fatigue, but I do have a chest issue, which has never been checked out. So it's really important that we move forward beyond recognition into support and inclusion. And I know in the report that's come out, we talked about making sure we're inclusive and we're not excluding people on the grounds of having too narrow a definition. And so people decided on long COVID because it was a broad term that covered absolutely everybody.
Just briefly, Lesley, if you would, I mean, if there was one thing that you wish you could do right now that you can't because of long COVID, what would you say that is?
Be out campaigning in person, probably, rather than just from my couch. But what I would love for everybody with long COVID is that they are heard by somebody in the medical profession who validates what they're going through, who doesn't try to think it's just the fact that they're depressed or it's just because of anxiety because we're living in a pandemic, but says we will check out what is wrong and try to find the answers for you.
OK, well, lots of good campaigns have been done from couches. Lesley, thank you very much. And I do wish you well. I do hope that you recover. And to everyone in the group with you, best wishes to them as well. Thank you very much, Lesley Macniven, campaigner and activist from that COVID support group.